You're listening to the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast, episode 87. And this is where I'm answering parent questions, some of them a little bit delicate, to help you get a clearer and better understanding of how all things assessment, school, and exams work. I'm Katie Jones, and with over 15 years in education as an award-winning high school teacher, international external examiner, and as a study coach, I've helped thousands of students skyrocket their results and confidence. And this podcast is where I share all my insights, tactics, and tips with you, the parent, so you can help your hardworking teen get happy, smart, and successful in their study, and have you both enjoy the journey along the way. This is the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast. Hey VIPs, I hope you're doing really well. I hope your teens are doing fantastically with their study and enjoying their study and the rest of their life as well. This episode is taken from an Ask Me Anything live Q&A session that I ran on our Facebook page. I run it once a month on the third Wednesday of each month. It was inspired by a couple of questions that I had recently on email that after responding and sending my reply, I just felt like this would be so useful to share with other parents as well, because they are a little bit kind of, I use the word delicate. They touch on a couple of interesting points. So I'm going to share those two with you. If you would like to catch the full video, you can go find that on the Rock Solid Study Facebook page. I include all of the recordings of our monthly Facebook Lives there, so you can go and catch those anytime. It's at www.facebook.com/Rock Solid Study, all one word. So I hope that you find these questions and my answers, or I should say really responses to them, helpful in some way. Enjoy. Welcome to this Facebook Live. I'm really excited to be here with you for an Ask Me Anything session. I am Katie Jones. I am the founder of Rock Solid Study. I'm the creator of the 10-week Great Transformation Program. I am an award-winning high school teacher. I've worked in high school education for over 15 years now. I think it actually might be over 16. I need to do the maths and count up the years properly now that we're in 2024. And I help hardworking students who are already either getting great grades, but they want to be able to do that in the smoothest way possible, most effective, most efficient way with less stress, or those students who are maybe not really getting the grades that they could be getting or that really represent and reflect the amount of effort and subject knowledge that they have. And they want to be able to have the tactics and strategies that allow them to meet more of the criteria and do it confidently and consistently. That is a word that has come up recently in some consults that I've had. So that's been really, really interesting. And so really what I have done is over my years of doing exam board marking, working with external examination systems, coursework moderation, is really worked out what gets marks and what doesn't, and how to help students put their information, their knowledge, their hard-earned knowledge and subject content across in the way that's going to get them more marks with less stress and with a lot more confidence and clarity along the way. So today we are doing an Ask Me Anything session based on or inspired by two questions that I've had fairly recently from parents that I just figured would be really helpful to probably a lot of other parents and students as well. So I'm going to kick off by sharing those. I've had a couple of other submitted questions, pre-submitted, and then I'm going to open up and you can type in your questions to me in the comments down below. So let's start off by celebrating that we're actually made it, we're all here. The first question that I want to share with you that I have been sent in, and I want to share my response because I think it will be helpful, because I thought it was really interesting. As I got into writing the response, I was like, oh, this is pretty juicy. And so the question, well, I'll read out the section that I think is most pertinent. It said, he tells me, this is a mum talking about her son, he tells me that senior English is not English at all and could easily be labelled as politics because of the subject matter. Interesting. We could probably, especially if you have a teen in the senior years, you might be able to relate to this a little bit. Or that it just seems to be discussing a certain issue. It might be power, it might be social hierarchy. Okay, and I'm going to come to that in a second. Throughout school, he has been a genius at English, off the charts in NAPLAN. However, now his marks have dropped because he's not interested in politics. So here is what I responded to that. I know it's not quite a question, but it was a really interesting statement. It did have like a question woven with the rest of the text. And it was this area where a lot of students can find they miss out on marks in big English essays and extended responses, because here's the key part of so much English study, especially as we go up into those higher grades. It's not just about comprehension. It's not just being about able to write well if they are producing the writing. And it's not just about understanding the story or what happens to the characters. So much of English study, it is so much about understanding the message that the author wants to convey to the reader. That is why they do so much study on the themes of a text. So in this case, it's obviously something political, whatever that might be. I don't need to know the details. None of us need to know the details, but obviously it's a political issue. Maybe it is social hierarchy. Maybe it's to do with culture. Maybe it's to do with discrimination. Maybe it's to do with, disparities in certain societies. Maybe it's to do with rights and power, depending on what the text is that they're studying. Here's the key link between the part that is English and the part that might feel like politics, or whatever the theme is that your teen is studying. It's how is the author conveying that message. So first of all, we've got to get really clear on what is the overarching message. What is, it's almost like the moral of the story. What is the opinion that author has and wants the audience to think or feel. Now, your teen doesn't have to agree with it. They don't have to have a personal opinion on it. We just have to be able to figure out what is it they're trying to get across. And then the middle part, this is where all the marks come in, is what techniques or devices have they used in order to convey that message? Have they used certain elements of characterization? Have they used a metaphor? Have they used symbolism? And there's, probably 100. And that's where they pick out their evidence. And they explain what was the meaning of that? And then how does that tie into the actual question or the actual message for the reader? Now, they're the reader, they're the audience. But what I thought is I would share with you, and I actually shared this on a podcast episode quite recently because it made me think of this. Episode 83 of the podcast, and if you haven't followed, downloaded, listened to, listened to probably is the word I need there. Listen to the podcast. It's called Parents of Hardworking Teens. And if this is a topic that is of interest to you or your teen, the episode is 83. You can go to any of your favorite podcast apps, go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of the good Google podcasts, we're on all of the big ones, and go to episode 83. It's called The Lie of There's No Right or Wrong Answer. Doesn't this tie into those big English questions? If that's ever stumped your teen or felt less than helpful, because it did to me, this will be really helpful. And in that episode, I actually went to the transcript of that episode and found this little chunk because I referenced something called a close reading of a text. And I say this as a non-English specialist. I say this as someone who actually, I wouldn't say I struggled with English. Like I did okay, I did well in English. I think I got a B in GCSE. I didn't take it at A level. We don't have to take it at A level at 18 in the UK. But it wasn't something that came naturally. I didn't like the big open questions. And this idea of a close reading is really just, what are we supposed to get from this? Doesn't have to be our own opinion, doesn't have to be our own interpretation. What are we probably supposed to get from this? What are they expecting us to think or feel? What did the author want us to think or feel? Okay, so this is from, I just used this because this is a really nice quote. It's from the Victoria Department of Education, but wherever you're listening in from, wherever you're watching from, New South Wales, New Zealand, UK, Singapore, these are all just some of the places we've got our students and audience. The Victorian Department of Education states, close reading has become a widely used approach in teaching comprehension, so understanding the text. But it's more than just literally understanding the words of the text. So it says, Snow and Connor, 2016, this is the research paper, define close reading as an approach to teaching comprehension that insists, that's quite a strong word, isn't it? Insists students extract meaning from text by examining carefully how language is used in the passage itself. The meaning of the text and the meaning of certain words or techniques or devices that are used within the text in order to create that meaning. So if your teen is starting to feel like we're just talking about this whole theme, where's the English in this? The English is the part that connects that. So I hope that that is helpful to a few of you. And I hope that if anyone is starting to feel like, hang on, I used to be great with this and now we seem to be veering into something else, they might be missing that real connection in the middle, which is the part that is English. So I thought that would be really helpful to share, and I thought that would be helpful just to give some of you maybe a bit of an insight as to what is going on there, especially at those senior levels. But that will happen in those lower year groups as well, just not quite as heavily, most likely. Okay, now I'm going to share with you a second question that I get sent in that I really wanted to share, but before I do, I actually got a really great question submitted for the session this evening from a parent today. And it's actually an English question, an English essay question. So I figured it would probably be most helpful for me to go through that off the back of what I've just talked about. And we will go through, I'm going to break down with you live. I haven't actually done any work on this in between receiving it. I just received it like late afternoon today, because I really like to break things down on the spot so that I can explain my thinking and what I'm seeing as I go. That's what I always do on coaching calls with students. So rather than me having a clear idea already of what's what, I just see it as they do, in the moment, on the spot, and go through the process, a strategic process of knocking that and breaking that down. Okay, so this was a message from Michelle. And she just wrote, help with this question, please. And then it turns out it's a real essay question. So the question is simply, explain how Jocelyn Moorhouse uses various cinematic techniques to influence the viewer's response to the ideas in The Dressmaker. Explain how Jocelyn Moorhouse, so that's going to be the author, I'm guessing. I haven't read it. I don't know The Dressmaker. We don't need to in order to be able to apply the strategy. Explain how Jocelyn Moorhouse, explain how the author uses various cinematic, it may be the director, cinematic techniques, not literary techniques. It'd be the author if it was literary, it's going to be the director if it's cinematic. This is where we're going. To influence the viewer's response, so not the reader's response, to the ideas in The Dressmaker. Now, Michelle has also written possible ideas. So this is obviously what their teen has started to know or think are the themes. This would have been something to do with maybe politics regarding the previous question, okay? Possible ideas: revenge, secrets, love, death, gender roles, and power. Okay, so let me break this down for you as I would break this down. Now, I could spend half an hour on this, and I don't want to take up obviously the whole Facebook Live with this. So here's what I will say to you. Now, especially for Michelle. Michelle, I know that your teen is currently enrolled in the 10-week Great Transformation Program. So FYI for Michelle and for anyone else who already has their teen in the 10-week Great Transformation Program, I break down the 2-step topic and focus system for dissecting any essay question in any subject, not just English, in Catapult 9. So here I have our content from the 10-week Great Transformation Program, because I knew that I'd probably reference a couple of points in today's lab. Essays made easy. Wow the marker by responding on point to the highest level questions. Almost all essays are analyze and evaluate level. Okay, so essays made easy, Catapult 9. They're definitely going to need to have done or want to have done 7 and 8 before them, because that's where we go through analyze, evaluate, and all the different commands. Here's what I would do just to give you a roundup of how I would break down this question. Number 1, it says explain. But what did I say were the 2 levels that all essays are asked at? Analyze and evaluate. Maybe one day someone will show me one that isn't that, but every single one I've ever seen is those, out of those 2. Here's the key, that this is a classic analyze question. Explain how. The how is not just explaining a process or explaining what happens, how the director in this case creates certain ideas. And I like the word messages, okay, in The Dressmaker. So it does say ideas. Now, sometimes you will write a whole essay on one theme, one message, one key idea. Maybe it is gender roles, maybe it is power. But because this says this is clues in the question, these are what I call Sherlock clues. This is an example of one Sherlock clue, okay? Ideas, it has plural. So they're expecting them to do more than one idea. So I would suggest you're absolutely on the right track with this, Michelle, or your teen is. I think it's Tom. Tom is your teen. They're on the right track that they need to pick. If they're going to do 3 body paragraphs, pick 3 of them. If they're going to do 4 body paragraphs, pick 4 of them. I don't know what their word count is. Out of the ones that they know are strong ideas or messages or themes in that movie. And then, this is the how part. Each one of those themes or ideas will be a body paragraph. And then the cinematic techniques, this is the focus. Lots of students are just going to write about the themes. They're just going to tell us about the themes. They're going to describe the themes. They're going to explain the themes. They're not going to analyze the devices that create the message. That's what they need to do. That's going to be then their evidence. That's going to be their quotes in each of those body paragraphs. Okay? They're going to need to use the 3 steps of analysis. That's in Catapult 8. Tackling the toughest tasks and questions, the top level commands of analyze, evaluate. I teach the 3 levels of analysis. But can you see how many elements there are there, folks? And here's what I really want you to see. The mistake, the topic trap that so many students are going to fall into is to just describe and explain the ideas like revenge, secrets, love, death, gender roles, or power. They're just going to talk about them. We never want to just talk about a topic. We have to respond to the question. Okay, I'm going to come to the other question that I definitely wanted to cover for all of you. Then I have another submitted question. I'm going to see if there's any other questions. Okay. Parent question. Where is it? Oh, this was it. She's getting better. So this was a parent whose teen went through the 10-week program a little while back, completed it. She sent a wonderful message. You might have sometimes, I've used it a couple of times as examples or at the ends of emails, you might have seen it. And part of it was this, which was again a really interesting point. Is she said she's getting better marks and is a lot more confident, but now, this is her daughter, she feels like she is just pleasing the teachers and isn't really studying. This I thought was such an interesting point. Now, does that mean that if students understand the strategy and the technique of figuring out what am I supposed to be doing, how do I actually do it, and how do I do it in a strategic way that feels like it's smooth? I'm not going to say easy, because it doesn't mean that it's suddenly like just easy, and it shouldn't be. But is it smooth? Are we clear? Do we feel confident? Is it not taking twice as long as it should? Absolutely. Now, again, podcast reference. Episode 63, I did a podcast episode called The Game. This whole game of getting the marks, giving the examiner what they want. In there, I talked about how we essentially need to know the rules of the game, we need to know how to play the game, and we need some tactics, as we would with any game if we're playing chess or if we're playing soccer. Now, I can totally understand when students have this, it's almost like, does it take away some of the creativity? Here's my thoughts on this. There are so many students that are having to struggle, guess, try and work out what is going on. They're trying different things. They're hoping that everything they write will get some marks. They're trying to put as much in as possible, but that's usually because they don't know exactly what they are supposed to be doing and how to exactly do it in a really streamlined way. So if we're taking away some of that struggle, does it suddenly feel like, maybe this isn't like the way to really be doing it? Am I almost like sort of cheating the system a little bit? No, we're just playing the game and we now understand the rules of the game, right? Secondly, I think this idea of, education is supposed to build curiosity, and it can absolutely still do that. But when it comes to assessment, are we trying to build curiosity when they're having an assessment? Not really. We're trying to judge how well do they know the content, and secondly, importantly, how well can they apply it to the question and the way the question has been asked and the success criteria that it is being marked against. So, if we consider that, like, what does studying really mean, and in a way, like, we can expand that to the idea of education today. I think, you know, back in the day, traditionally, we do kind of still think of it as being, okay, we've got to learn information, we've got to become more knowledgeable, but we know that really today, that is not what the world is about, and that is not what is required in order to be successful in the world today. If we think about education as preparing us to be successful in the future, we do not need to store lots of subject knowledge anymore. We have Google, we have ChatGPT, and goodness knows what to be able to do all of that for us. It is so much now about critical thinking skills, decision making, being creative and putting different aspects together, making judgments. In other words, applying the knowledge that we can so readily lay our hands on and figure out things like, okay, well, what do they want? What tells me that that's what they want? What's the best way to put that across? What's the most streamlined or effective way to present or give that response? And how do I tailor it? Like, we can think about that. I had a consult with a parent student just yesterday, and they literally said that. They're like, this is applicable in the workplace, because you've got to find out, like, how to operate in a certain way that's going to give you an outcome you want, whether it's for your boss, whether it's for a client, whatever it might be. So I thought that would be a helpful response to share. Okay, next question. So this is a question that was sent in as a pre-submission this morning. Okay, this is from Tanya, and she's sort of titled it as summaries stroke note taking. Can you please share some tips on making them, so notes and summaries, as brief as possible without leaving out important information? Oh my goodness. This is, as a student, I really, it's funny what you remember, isn't it? I remember being in it was an IT class, which kind of sounds mad now, back then. I was in an IT class, and they gave us this little like article, and it was like a starter activity. We were supposed to read it, and they literally said highlight information, just highlight important information. And I can tell you, I do know the reason I remember it. It's because I knew even back then that, like, I'm like, this isn't working. I know this isn't working, but I don't know how to do it differently, because honestly, I had probably every word except for an and a the. Like, I probably had 4 unhighlighted words on this whole article, because the problem was I didn't know what was important. I didn't know which things were going to be the most important parts and which wasn't, and it was all like information, so my sheet was just bright yellow. They may as well have just like printed it on bright yellow paper and said, here you go. So, and I could have just crossed out the and the. So I totally get this. She said, my son uses his notes to then make Anki flashcards. So Anki, for anyone who doesn't know, it's an online, I think it's an app as well, but it's an online like flashcard maker. And you can type what you want on the front, and then you put like an answer on the back, which then becomes his main form of revision besides practicing short answer questions, extended response, and essays. Okay, so practicing real life exam technique practice, all good, happy with that. Or should he keep his notes more detailed and then be more specific in Anki? Okay, and she said then she's listed out his subjects. And secondly, do you think you'll ever run a note-taking workshop for paying students? Okay, so last question is very easy. I won't be running like a separate workshop because it is in the 10-week Great Transformation Program. So Catapult 3, Become a Note-Taking Ninja. I literally teach what is really important with note-taking, how to do it really effectively so that the information goes in and stays in, and you actually understand it and process it. Now, let me tell you one tiny element from that. Unless there is a medical or other reason for them to be typing it into Anki, I would 100% be saying convert that into written. Literally just do it on handwritten cards. Don't be typing unless there is an external or a different reason for that. Handwriting is always more effective than typing. So that's my first thing. So I wouldn't be using that. Now, is it better than doing nothing? Yes. But first thing, be writing. I'll talk about that in Catapult 3. Secondly, I give you not all, but I give you some of the most effective different methods for note-taking and different layouts and systems for note-taking and ways to shorten and condense those notes, how to make decisions on what's important to write and what isn't needed, different layouts, different methodologies depending on what suits your learning style, so your team's learning style, and what the topic or the subject might be, and even how it's being delivered. If it's a seminar and they've got no idea what the speaker's going to say, there's one way to do it. If it's something where it's like a textbook and you can already kind of see what's happening and what's included, there's going to be other ways that would work best. Okay. The second thing is that we seem to be talking a little bit about I want to touch on the difference between what is note-taking for learning and what is note-taking for revision. So first up, we want the detail if they're learning, and then we want the summaries if they're revising. And they are actually two different skills. Both times, here's the commonality, we want to be converting the information. We want to be converting the information. If it's written, turn it into a diagram, turn it into a flowchart, turn it into a mind map, turn it into a timeline, turn it into a sketch, a diagram, whatever it might be, and vice versa. There's nothing wrong with notes, but if they're already in notes, don't just write them straight back out into notes, okay? Condensing and shorting is better than nothing, better than copying out, but even better is to transform the format of it. Okay, this also goes for revision. Now, revision is Catapult 5 in the 10-week grade transformation program. By the way, if anyone wants a copy of this, it is in the summary page of the 10-week grade transformation program information. So all you need to do is go to www.gradetransformation.com/join. That is the summary page. It gives you all of the information about the 10-week program. In there is this document, and underneath there's like an explanation of exactly what is covered in every module. So, Tanya, in terms of note-taking, in terms of revision, and I even went back and checked this a little bit earlier. I even have 5.3 in the revision module is all about how to use palm cards and revision cards much more actively and effectively, because most students write them and then they do very little with them. They keep them in a nice stack because it feels really good. But then probably the most that happens with them is they read back over them, or they get someone to just they flip it over and test them, or they get someone else to ask a question. There's so many better, more active ways and effective ways to use them. And I go through, there's probably 5 or 6 different ways to use those cards much more effectively. And again, that's much easier to do if you've got them hard copy, because literally some of it is quite kinesthetic, some of it's much more visual, some of it's about ordering, making connections, all of that. Now, in terms of what information can we leave out and what's detailed, that's where it's all about making links. Now, I could talk a lot about that, but here's the key thing to consider. If I write this, and then I write this, can I mentally make that link or connection? Because honestly, it's making the links and connections that is what's going to A, keep it in our brain, B, show that we actually understand the process because we know what that link is and how it works, and C, C, be able to make some of those connections or links or transform or convert or apply information in a certain way in the way that the question is asked. Okay. So I hope that helps. There is a difference between learning the information and revising the information. We need those systems to be much more active than they usually are for most students. The final couple of things I want to wrap up with are, number 1, we are not that far away on the podcast from the 100th episode, and we have some pretty big plans for the 100th episode. So if you're not, like I said, already following, listening to the podcast, make sure you're doing that. And secondly, you should definitely be following and listening within the next couple of weeks, because in episode 88, just on Monday, I did a very special guest interview for the podcast, and we'll be releasing that in episode 88. And I am going to keep you in suspense, and I'm not going to tell you who it is. But based on, especially even the downloads of previous episodes and which one's the most popular, combining this person with the topic that we're going to cover, you're going to want to listen. So episode 88 coming up in a week and a half or so's time, couple of weeks time, you're definitely going to be wanting for that. So I'm just going to give you a couple of teasers. Those were some good questions. I hope you found this episode really helpful. If you have a question that you would like to get my input on or insights on, then you can ask that at a future Facebook Live session, 3rd Wednesday of each month. Come and follow me on Facebook on the Rock Solid Study page. And in the meantime, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll catch you back here next week. See you then. Bye. If you're ready to have your teen achieve their best possible results with less stress, then I want to invite you to enroll them in the 10-week grade transformation program, where they're going to learn the key concepts, skills, and strategies to catapult their performance in assessments and exams. It's risk-free. They either achieve bigger and better results with a whole lot more confidence in 10 weeks, or we refund you in full. Just head over to www.rocksolidstudy.com/program, and I'll see you there.